being here, and I'm really excited for the discussion we're going to be having today. So let's go ahead and start with a brief introduction so we can all get to know each other, a little bit more about me. I would love to know more about you all. So if you could please give your name and the profession that you're currently in, that's how we'll get started. And we'll go ahead and start with Mrs. Rain Antonet.
Great. Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for having me today. As just mentioned, my name is Rentone Johansson. I was born and raised in Douala, Cameroon, and I currently live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am an aerospace engineer employed by Millennium Engineering and Integration. I am currently a contractor at NASA Ames Research Center, where I support a team named TechEtsat. We build satellite, and I support them by developing, testing, and implementing new communication communication experiment. And also my focus is on the orbiting device for CubeSats. This is a little bit about myself.
Thank you, Rain, for that wonderful introduction. We'll go ahead and move on to Dr. Frida. If you could please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm also born and raised in Douala, Cameroon. I did boarding school at Sika Baptist College, O and A levels. And then after that, I moved to the States, where I did my bachelor's in science at Rutgers University in Kansas City, Missouri. I had a biology major and a physics minor. After that, I went to Tulane in New Orleans, where I have a master's in science in public health, and I worked in tropical medicine. And from there, I went to New York, where I was a research assistant with Ralph Steinman at Rockefeller University. We worked on humanized mice and HIV vaccines based on the dendritic cell. And from then, I went to Germany, where I still am, to do my PhD in immunology and infectious diseases at the Max Planck Institute of Infection Biology. And presently, I am a scientific advisor at Midge Medical. It is a medtech startup. We are working on handheld diagnostics where you can get results delivered on an app on your smartphone. And obviously, because of the pandemic, we're working on a SARS-CoV-2 15-minute test. And hopefully in October, we'll be starting clinical trials on saliva that we hope that when you use your saliva on this biochemistry, you get to the result in the app in 15 minutes. So fingers crossed. And thanks for having me.
Wow, fingers crossed for sure. That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Dr. Frida. And then last but certainly not least, we'll move on to Dr. Christelle. If you could please help to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi everybody, and good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. So I'm Christian Bonchi. I was born in Cameroon and I graduated from high school over there before I moved to Senegal when I did my pharma degree in biomedical with a major in biomedical science. So since I was born in a French part, so sometimes it's like if I speak a little bit of French, I think you won't mind since you have that background too. And currently, I'm a research scientist working on HIV genetic diversity. So when I got my pharma degree, I moved to France, where I did a master and PhD in biology and health, and with a major in infectiology and immunology. So I'm close to Dr. Frida too on that side. And after my graduation, I went back to Cameroon, where I worked for the Chantal Biya International Research Center on HIV. So that's how I got introduced into HIV research. And from there, I worked for 2 years, and then I felt like it was time to move forward and to get furthermore bringing on my techniques on HIV. So I got a postdoc position at the FDA through the FDA Fellowship Research. And since then, since I joined at that center, the Laboratory of Molecular Virology, I've been working on characterizing genetic diversity of HIV and know the impact of that diversity on the diagnostic, the therapy, and many strategies that are currently used to fight against the pandemic. And I've been working on that for 9 years now. And what is really interesting is that it's not limited to the type of HIV that's circulating on the US, but we are receiving strains from all over the globe. So we have kind of located in the US, but working worldwide. So that's what I'm doing right now. Thank you for having me.
Of course, what wonderful introductions from all of you. We clearly have some very diverse backgrounds and experiences. So I'm really excited to learn more about how you got there. So my first question for you all is actually, can you dive a little bit more into your past and how you got to the current point you're at in your career? What are those notable moments that you overcame to get to where you're at right now in your career? And then again, we can start with Mrs. Rain.
Okay. Can you hear me? Sorry, I had a little bit of. So, yeah, a little bit about my background. So my passion for science started at a young age. I think I was 9 years old. And to say the least, for a young girl to be interested in science and engineering rather than, the most, I would say, conventional path or route, like wanting to be a doctor or wanted to work at the hospital. I think I faced a lot of challenges from the young age, but I cherished my dream, and I moved to France right before high school, where I was able to started pursuing my dream. I was the only girl and the only woman from the minority in the entire high school. So it was it was a reflection of what I will be facing, but it was a successful experience. And then I went to the Catholic University of Lille, where I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew it was STEM. So that's the reason why my first bachelor is in engineering science, and the second bachelor is in system engineering. And then in 2013, I did my internship at Barfield Inc. In Miami, and as a assistant mechanical engineer, and I knew aerospace was my passion. I finally found my purpose and finally found something that will fulfill me and make me feel like I'm not working on a daily basis. I'm learning. So I went back to France, and I knew I wanted to be in the US and work for the best or space organization, which was NASA. And my goal was to work for NASA in 10 years from my graduation. So I moved to the US in 2016, and I was accepted in the master program, the graduated program here in the aerospace engineering department. And with a good network and also what we call solid grades, right? I was able to get an internship and work part-time at NASA Ames Research Center 6 months before graduation. So this is a little bit about how persistency and courage got me where I wanted to be in 10 years. I think 10 years earlier than my initial goal. Yeah, to be at NASA.
Wow, that's really inspiring. Thank you so much, Rain. Yeah, could you tell us now a little bit how you got to where you're at in your career?
Oh, me? Okay.
Yes.
How can I start? So it first started with my mom. My mom was reading mathematics at the University of Yaoundé before she left due to family reasons to then become an administrative assistant. And our entire family, basically, they are in the sciences. Full disclosure, George Belange is my direct maternal uncle, and he's a computer scientist. His junior brother is a dental surgeon, and his younger sister is a medical doctor. So basically, from the French side of my family, they were very focused in the science and mathematics. So all the presents I got from them were encyclopedias, mathematic puzzle books, chemistry sets, microscopes. My Uncle George came back from the States when I was 9 years old and gave me an Anatomy Joe instead of a Ken Barbie because he was like, he didn't want me to grow up weird. So he got me Anatomy Joe because he had like a half stub type penis, full disclosure, and I could take out all his organs and put it back. That was better than the Ken doll. And so because you had this family support and love of science, they made it fun. And then when I went to the boarding school in Limbe, Seka, they put you in two tracks, either the artistic track or the scientific track. And all our teachers that were really good in science were female. And they were always about the potential of what women could do. And because Seka is an old boarding school, we always had alumni in different spheres of science. So that's why when I went for undergrad, I did the combination of biology and physics because I wanted to actually be a biomedical engineer over like a standard type doctor. I mean, that was also there, or a scientist, but it was like I wanted to build things because one of the older ladies who had done biomedical engineering at Hopkins had come to Seka and talked to us already about using robotics for surgery, which I thought was like super cool. I've never seen things like that. And then when you're in university in the States, if you're very lucky, which I was, again, my physics and maths teacher, Dr. Paula Schultz, was a woman. Top biology teacher, Professor Mary Haskins, was a woman. She took us from the Grand Canyon to collect samples all the way to hospitals. So we had the full breadth of what science could do. Again, for the master's program, had a lovely female professor from India, South Africa. So she was also doing work with Médecins Sans Frontières. And then at Rockefeller, again, more female scientists. So if you have female scientists or females in science who have been there with you since your youth. So for me, it's the persistence of mentorship and this feeling that girls can also do good science and it's fun. And more importantly, if you do it well, you get paid very well for it. So that's how it was like. You do science, you get money, you don't need to stress out like your brothers to follow your father into the business, just do science. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Frida. That's honestly really funny because I can relate to that as well.
Thank you, Uncle George.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one maybe without the French background. My family's from Sierra Leone, so if you speak French, I might get lost, Christelle. But my family, the encyclopedias, the science kits, those gifts are entirely. I got workbooks for Christmas, so I'm very used to that with my household and my parents supporting me in that way. And what you brought up about mentorship and having teachers, like the right people in your life as you're growing up. Like full disclosure as well for me, Paul Bakima, who's on this call and leads KSA, known him for over 10 years now. And how I actually met him was in high school. He was my calculus teacher. And he told me from when he met me, and I took him for every math class I could take. So at my geometry, algebra 2, all the way up to AP calculus. And he told me that if I keep pushing and I focus on my studies, I had the mind to pursue engineering because I didn't think it was something that I would be able to do. So that really did play a large part in me going into engineering after high school because he was one of those mentors that I had during that time. So it really does play a huge role. So thank you for sharing that. And then Christelle, if you could share a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
So how I got there, I mean, I was raised in a family of scientists, I can say. My dad was an entomologist and my mom was a linguist. In high school, I wasn't really good in like mathematics. So I was like, I'm not gonna do science. I mean, I love science, but maybe to get there, to go through the high school itself and the place of mathematics. And so it was really important. So I told my mom, you know what, I'm gonna be a linguist like you. I'm like, have you ever seen like philosophic thing or whatever, it's more harder. So if you learn through science, you can do something. And I was kind of also, interested in what my dad was doing. It was really rewarding to look after something and then got a result. And basically, we kind of was just drawn into that environment of insects and everything. So I'm like, okay, let me just do science. And then I got oriented into like pharmacy. So that's how I got my pharma degree. But when even I was doing the pharmacy study, I was just like, I just don't want to learn how to make potion and everything and then just deliver it. So I wanted to do something more exciting, try to see how things works and how they are related to the patient, like kind of translating stuff. So I did biomedical science. That's the reason why I chose that major instead of just totally pharmaceutics things, just dispensing stuff. So, and after that, I was just like, it just felt like I was incomplete. So I needed to go further. And I was kind of feeling like too young to just stop there. So I decided to go after a PhD. And that's how the challenge started, really, because I had to move to France too. And then being like minority female into that environment, it was quite difficult. And also the demand of the program itself. I know most of you has done PhD, and being all by yourself in that environment, it was really, really, really challenging. But, I was driven by the fact that, as I learned when I was younger, when you go for something, if you work hard, you can get it. So I did. And I got the PhD, and I was really, really tired because it took me six years after the master and the PhD in biology and science. So I went back to Cameroon to get a little bit of rest. But I mean, in Cameroon, you need to work too. So you just cannot sit there. And so I started working as a pharmacist and then as a substitute lecturer at university, teaching undergrad and grad student. And then I find a job in that HIV research center. And when I was doing my PhD, actually, I was doing on mycobacteria. And it was really exciting because I was working on a neglected disease. So nothing to do with HIV. And I was just kind of scared. And I remember that's my mentor, my PhD mentor, when I graduated, told me, welcome to the complicated world of researchers. So when I went back, I kind of realized what it was meaning by that, because it's not just about science, it's about competition. And I had to face that too. And then, I just started in that HIV center working on a project. And because I was working hard, I quickly got the lead of a project. And we got to a point where we need more technique, more experiments to go further in our investigations. So I applied for that postdoc fellowship in many countries, Germany, and then I got the one in the US. And it was really exciting because, it was all new for me and I had to learn English from there and everything, the language, the people, everything was new, the environment was new. But the lab that I joined had like 15 people and all were men, all were men except the lab chief. And that's how I got my female mentor, kind of, because she trusted me and she watched me how I was dealing with the new environment that I was landed to. She felt that I was a little homesick, but she helped me a lot go through that because related to the work, related to the skill, related to what I was supposed to do in my job, she knew, I was just working hard and I knew that with my background, I was able to perform whatever I was asking to do. So I did well. And actually the postdoc is like 2 or 3 years. And after that, she got me to stay longer because she was, I was doing good related to what I was providing as a result as science. But this was basic science. And I'm still there because I still have that's like 10 years from now, what I want to do. Like, I really want to translate what I'm doing in the lab to the bedside of the patient, like just not doing research. And that's how I kind of been passionate to what I'm doing, going through the HIV diversity. And I was saying earlier, it's good that it's not just the strain that is circulating in the US, but all over the world. Like being in the US, those allow me to know what is happening out of the US too. And, you know, translate everything and get something there that can help fight the HIV. I mean, when we talk about diagnostic, do the right diagnostics, and being at the FDA also, it's a kind of uplifting experience, because you definitely see how it can be related. It's not like just like university lab, but how you can relate what you're doing in the lab to the patients. So actually that's how I got into there, and still driven by passion and the goal that I'm having.
Christelle, that was my mentor, let you know.
Oh yeah.
That's when we were in Cameroon, he was my boss. So he mentored me a lot until where I am today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing. And thank you so much for sharing that as well, Christelle. It's been a very interesting career path for you, it seems like. And now that I've heard a little bit about all of your backgrounds and how you got to where you're at, it seems like you guys know, as minority women, we're very driven. We can have some really close support systems in our families and sometimes in our schooling. But what happens when you're in a situation like Christelle, when you're the only woman on a really important team? I want to know a little bit more about the barriers you guys have faced, because I know we've all faced them. So what would you say has been the most significant barrier you faced as a minority female working through and rising in your profession? And then actually for this one, Christelle, if you would like to start.
Oh, well, what was the most new? I think for me, it's kind of a mix of the personal life and the work life, because seriously, I knew that's where I am. I mean, that was just like my way of thinking, because I think that in that environment, you have to have a really strong thinking, like where you want to go and what do you want to achieve. So that was the thing that I had. But, you know, I think it's more linked to my personal life, because I didn't have really any support around me. Like family was away, and I had to face being, you know, African American, coming from Africa, I can say, not just being raised or being here for a long time, having graduated from a university here. I had to learn everything new. And I felt like coming from abroad was kind of, in people's mind, limiting. So I had to work double to just prove that, you know, I deserve where I am, right? So kind of the bar was just to have more time to prove all people around, I mean, all people working with you, that you can do the task. And sometimes I had to leave the lab around like 9 p.m. I mean, from 8, because I wanted to do more, until they got it. Like after a year, they're like, okay, if you need something, go see Christelle, because she can explain it to you. I think that is just, you know, not being restricted by your environment, what is around you. So that's, for me, the first barrier that you need to get over to be able to perform in that environment. So you're like, okay, you have the skill, you can do it, so go for it. So actually that's exactly, that's how I managed that. So basically the barrier wasn't really linked to the job itself, but it was linked to people around and the way I was feeling within too.
Thank you. Rain, would you like to also weigh in?
Oh, yes, of course. I think I can relate to what Tristan just said. And if I have to add something, like the first barrier, I would say it's loneliness, right? Loneliness. Why? Because I moved here to the US in 2016, as I mentioned before, but I couldn't speak English. For example, like even if, oh yeah, at all, I had to learn English in 6 months to be able to take the English test and then get accepted to the program. So I feel like I've been out of my comfort zone for about 4 years till now. I'm still not in my comfort zone. And I don't know if I'm going to go back to my comfort zone ever because I survived till now. So, well, I might as well continue. So, my point is, yeah, loneliness. When people can't understand you, it's a requirement. You need to go the extra mile, for example, to prove yourself, to prove them. For example, I had to prove that I could learn a language and be, efficient and understand the instruction, be able to deliver only after 6 months. So in this period of time of 6 months, I was alone because no one can learn a language for you. People can help you, and I'm really grateful for my colleague at school, my professor who helped me. But at the end of the day, you have to face it alone. Also, when you are in the environment, still in the same point, when you're in an environment where you're underrepresented, you're also lonely because they cannot relate. When my colleague, I'm the only woman in my team at NASA right now, but when my colleague have certain reference, since I wasn't born and raised here, if they make a joke or if they think that I will get it, but I don't get it, then I really need to work on myself, not to take anything personal and be humble enough to ask and be, okay, I didn't get the reference. Could you please explain? For example, as of right now, I still have a lot to learn regarding the terminology. I'm fortunate to work with people or fine gentlemen had been in the industry for 30 years. Well, I don't know. And it's really like the loneliness to be the only one in the room, not knowing something and have the courage to stand up and humble enough to be, I don't know, could you please educate me? So I feel like the past 4 years, this has been like the problem. It's the loneliness and how to step back and acknowledge it first, because it's important, acknowledge it, and also be willing to make the effort to become better. But as a woman from the minority, we're alone. I don't have I don't have a Krista or Frida or Linda in my team to be like, oh, did you see what just happened? How would you do that? Like, have you ever experienced this? No, I'm alone and I have to figure it out anyway, right? Like, and I feel like this is the first barrier because we are underrepresented. But I feel I will close by saying that what gives me the courage to face loneliness, it's knowing that I'm paving the way for young ladies. If I'm the only one now, I'm sure in 10 years, you will have 10 or 15. And by having this conversation like this, by sharing our story, by mentoring our, young sisters, if I may, we will at the end of the day, in 10 years, loneliness will not be a barrier. But as of right now, this is what I have to share first.
Thank you so much, Rain. Those words really resonate with me as someone that is younger in my career. I only finished my undergrad 3 years ago, and I'm in towards the end of my master's program. So I hope to follow in all of your footsteps and continue my education and continue to grow in my space professionally. And it is people like you, Rain, and Christelle and Frida that are paving the way in making the space for people to understand and see women of color as real talent, as very valuable in the workplace. So I really appreciate you speaking on that. And it's why I appreciate being able to hear from you, because someone that's younger in their career as a minority woman who also has African background, it really does give me hope and shows me that that it's possible. Before, at least when I was younger, I didn't see these things. It wasn't possible. And you guys are living proof of the change that's happening in the industry. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then lastly, Frida, would you like to weigh in on what you think is the most significant barrier you faced as a minority and female in the industry?
Well, there are two barriers, one external and one internal. The external one, as Crystal said, is the credibility factor. You're a woman, you're Black, and not just Black, you're Black African. Those are like 3 heavy duty things. So every time you're starting in your new workplace or new environment, you're always given extra tasks. And then it's always under the table checked with their inner circle of experts to see if you're at the level that they require. And then they start trusting you with bigger and bigger tasks. So even though I come with all these lovely degrees, this wonderful experience, whether it's from the States or Germany, or even spending time in South Korea and coming back and things like that, no, when I start a new project, they will always first go to their inner circle to take a look at what she wrote, have thought process and all before you can start seeing the trust in their eyes towards the quality of your work. And then the internal factor is what's called imposter syndrome. You have to deal with that demon to say that I am good. I believe I'm good. I belong here, because you have so much of this stuff external. You start doubting yourself deep in the night. And as Rain said, the loneliness, that also plays on the whole imposter syndrome. I remember the first 3 months of my PhD program in Germany, I was freaked out because Frida is a common German name. And I was freaked out that, did they choose the right Frida, or did they make a mistake and just like on the computer and then they just slid in the black Frida? Like seriously, I was that freaked out. They're like, no, we took the right Frida. You're the Frida we wanted. I was like, okay, good. So credibility outside, but your internal imposter syndrome, dealing with all your voices, and because you're always on, you rarely have a time to relax and take points. So those are the things you have to learn later on, to be forgiving with yourself, to be like, you know what? Today, I'm not going to be able to stay in the lab till 3 a.m. I also need a break to sleep. So yes, the Chinese postdoc next to you will also be there at 3 a.m. But you look at each other, you're like, you know what, you're going to burn out. So at least once in a while, you take a deep breath and be like, you know what, I have done my best. I am enough. And I have fought so hard to be here. I belong here. So you then start looking at articles, YouTube videos, how to deal with imposter syndrome. Then you also look at videos on how to deal with the credibility factor. Then you also learn things about how to talk with your white male professor about, like, diplomatically and tactfully, how you feel about the conversations he has with you about your credibility. And then you explain that, look, this is my background. These are the target goals you asked me. And I have always over-delivered. Why? Because of my background. And then you will see again the big trust in their eyes increases more and more. Your imposter syndrome has also been managed a bit better, not just because of the external factors, but also for you, because you've gotten the external validation, but more importantly, you've gotten the internal validation. So those are my 2 barriers. For me, it was always credibility and my inner voice, this inner demon that says, do I really belong here? But at the end of the day, you realize that you are good and you do belong. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Frida. Imposter syndrome, I think, is really, I think it's the most prevalent among minority women in the workplace. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's a very important point. It's definitely something I felt before. I can't tell you how many times people have heard my name, Linda Johnson, and then were shocked when they saw me in person. I was not the Linda Johnson they were expecting. My parents didn't give us American names on accident. It's something they considered. So I can't tell you how many times, especially because my English is very good, when I speak on the phone to people and then they see me in person, I'm definitely not the Linda Johnson they're expecting. And then I think, oh, is this a mistake? So I definitely can relate to that. That has happened to me before. Based on what you all have said, I think about barriers that you faced getting to where you're at in your career, would you say those are the same barriers you face or are facing to advance in your career? I want to know if those are the same things you would consider barriers to advancement. And then Christelle, if you could start to give me your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think that at the point where I am at now, I think I've dealt with that barrier, and I think that it's going to be definitely another fight for advancement. So because I think that in that position, it's not just all being you, a minority female. It's about all the people who want to get an advancement in their careers. So I think that what will be the barrier at that point? It has to be, for me, it will be kind of just internal barrier, because I'm always in that mindset that if you want to go somewhere, if you want to do somewhere, you have to fight for it. And so far, for what I've learned, because one of the things that you really need to do is to educate yourself about advancement in the position that you're looking at and how to get there and stuff like that. It's not like it's just gonna, you don't own it, you don't entitled to it. So you have to fight, you have to work for it. And I think that so far you will have to fight more internal barrier. Like, for example, me, I never learned to speak English from books or from video or stuff like that. I learned by speaking. I was just dropped there. They didn't have me to go and learn English. Until now, I have colleagues that are with at my job with my lab for 30 years, for 15 years, that come from China, that do not speak English like very clearly. But we have to write articles in English. We have to read papers in English. So doing that, we learn, and we have to do presentation. And what is interesting in the US is like people will manage to understand what you're saying. So sometimes at what point you don't really need to make so much effort. It's just for your own growing that you kind of think, okay, you know what, maybe I'll have to move to another place. And in that case, maybe I should learn better how to communicate, because at what point I was just like, I say something, but I feel like they didn't get it the way what I was trying to say, what I was expecting to vehicle in what I was saying. So maybe I did that the wrong way. So let me just educate myself, and you educate yourself into how to present yourself, how to talk to people, how to talk about the position that you want to get. Like, you know what you're talking about, you know where you're going at, because I think that the most important thing is how to present yourself, how you sell yourself. And I think that's why I'm saying that's the most important barrier for that thing for me right now at the state where I am in, is just internal. Fight your imposture, fight your low education, and get over it, and just keep in mind you can get it. Because I think that for now, I think for now, a lot of positions want to hire a minority, because so many people have fought for that already, and we're still fighting for that. So that keep in mind that it can be available for you too. They can be a position that you can have. And I don't think that's my way of saying. Maybe any of you might have a different experience or a different way of saying it, but my experience is that if I put everything that's all the skill, everything that I need on my side, all the weapons that I need, and I go for it, then I can have it. I don't think a lot of things from the outside of me can be a barrier for me to get an advancement. So it just depends on what I want and what is my goal. So this is basically what I'm thinking, but also it depends on the position. I know that the higher position are more competitive, and then you can have a ceiling, and when you're in minority, you can have a low chance to have it. So it's always you always find a way to just go over it, or just go the other way around it, so that you can get it. But I mean, if I don't have it, I don't feel like it's because I'm a female, Black female. No, it's just because it's competitive. A lot of people are fighting for those higher positions, and may not be that it's not related to the fact that I'm a minority female. So that's basically what I want to say.
Yes, thank you so much for weighing in. Definitely, as you get higher in the food chain, it gets so much more competitive. I see that all the time in my workplace. So I definitely relate with that as well. Rain, did you also want to weigh in?
Oh, yes, of course. Once again, I do agree with what Crystal just explained. But I don't think, with no pretension at all, I don't think there is a barrier anymore, you know, because as I explained before, I my NASA, like work at NASA was my dream in 10 years, right? Like 10 years from graduation from 2018. I was fortunate enough to be part of, now I work for, I'm employed by MEI, but my mission, my project, I support a project at NASA. So my mindset right now that I achieved my goal, my long-term goal, my mindset right now is like, what can I do to improve myself? What can I do to learn? How can I go from a point A to point B? So I don't even see barrier. I know I'm a woman from minority, I'm from Africa, but I feel when you reach a point, people don't wonder where you're coming from. They wonder, oh, what was your the experiment you're working on? How can, please, can you jump in this project and help me? How can we do something better? How can we improve like the technology? How can we serve the community? So at this point, I don't think there's any barrier other than my mindset, because when I wake up in the morning, I know I can do anything, like literally anything. Because I think 6 months from now, I would have not imagined that. I didn't think working at NASA was special until they released a video about me and people reach out to me and oh yeah, you're an inspiration. And between you and me, I had this video for over a year in my phone, and I was just like, well, who cares, right? Like, who really cares about, you know, Ren working at NASA? Nothing special. But when you're in contact with young ladies who want to be like you understand that it's a matter of time, it's a matter of dedication. And even if I apply for a position, like Crystal was saying, applying for the position and I don't get the position, like almost want to say no big deal, because I still have the opportunity to do better, the opportunity to move forward. So at this point, I don't feel like we should even spend a lot of time talking about barriers, but we should talk about the solution, how we can help each other to take our stories to the other level. Because as of right now, the barrier is us. Like, do we believe we can do it? Everything you put your mind into, it's possible. This is the message we should, the information we should convey today, and not really talk about the barrier. Because at some point, when you're educated, you are part of the group. I work with a group of 6 gentlemen. Like, they are, I think, the best colleagues ever. My project manager also, it's always supportive. He always want me to go into meeting with him. Always, he's always willing to introduce me to other group at NASA. For example, I work for the research and development group, but 2 days ago, for example, we had a meeting with the wind tunnel team. So he really wants me to have exposure. So at the end of the day, it's up to me. So we should, I think my takeaway from this is we should focus on uh, the solutions, because they are out there. There are more solutions than barriers. And but unfortunately, we often spend more time looking at what can go wrong, but not all the options offered to us.
Thank you so much, Rain. I do agree too with you and Christelle. A lot of times the barrier is us ourselves, because I guess we're so used to the previous mindset that we are excluded, that we can't move forward, that we can't get these opportunities. But now we have them. So now that we have them, like, what are we doing with them? How can we take them to the next level? So I really agree with that. Thank you. And then lastly, Frida, if you would like to share your perspective.
Yes, so following up on Crystal and Rain, we had these barriers, we had solutions. Now, what are we doing with this next level? So, for example, as we're moving up the career ladder, the things we should do is to educate ourselves on how to negotiate. Women of color, we don't know how to negotiate. Negotiate for the big pay package and negotiate for what I call not just equity, but like this leadership pixie dust that will help us go closer and closer to become, if it's academia, tenured professor, or if it's corporate world, to become the CEO, to be in the C-suite. So those are the things that we should do. We have dealt with the credibility factor. We have dealt with our imposter syndrome. We have dealt with our loneliness. We have dealt with any latent racism or misogyny in whatever environment. And now we're moving up. Let's try and get more economic viable and have more say in boardrooms and in leadership positions in our organizations. So for Rain, one day I would love to see her to be the director of NASA. For Crystal, one day I would love to see her to be the head of the FDA. And for me, I would love to be chief scientific officer of my startup or any big pharma company. So that's what I'm saying, that now we've dealt with those issues. I say that's what I was thinking. I was like, now we have to learn how to negotiate. We have to learn how to sit in the big boys table. So it's now our turn to sit also at that table. Because when we are there at that table, then we are opening up the bottom base of the pyramid so that more and more girls who look like us can get in there. So, and in memory of RBG who passed away, maybe one day there'll be 9 Black women on the US Supreme Court someday. We never know. So that's why I said now we should learn how to be brave enough to negotiate, not just for money, but also for speaking power on these big positions in organizations and corporate companies. Yeah.
I think you bring up a really good point there, Frida, because now not only just getting these spaces, how do we properly occupy these spaces? When I do see other Black women in higher positions, I don't necessarily see them having influence over what's going on in their particular field or in their particular board or whatever field of work they're in, but they're in that position. You know, they focus on their research, they focus on their projects, they focus on exactly what they're doing instead of like spreading, having that influence, you know, like occupying that space fully and using their power, I think, in a lot of really good ways, and their influence in a lot of really good ways. So I think that's really important. I think that's part of the reason we're having a lot of issues now around diversity and diversity in the workplace. And they say, well, we have a few, like we have, everyone's giving their diversity numbers, everyone's saying what they have. But I'm like, if we've had all this diversity in our boardrooms, what was keeping you from recruiting more diverse? Like if you really meant it, why weren't you doing that before? And you find that a lot of those, not just women, but just people of color that were in these positions weren't using their influence to raise their voice and say, we need a more diverse workplace, not until all this was going on in the US. So I really agree with you. Like when we're in these positions of power, we need to occupy that space. We need to spread our influence. And I think it's very important, like Rain was saying, we need to talk about solutions. And some of those solutions include spreading your influence and using the power that you have in your position. Not only just like to prove it to yourself that you can do anything, but show others they can do anything and bring young women and young people of color along with them on that journey. So I really appreciate that point, and I really appreciated your answers to that question. They were really, really interesting. So on that point, since you said rest in peace to RBG, I also agree. I was devastated to hear the news because she is someone I thought was quite inspirational in her role, although she wasn't a minority. I kind of want to know from all of you, who are some inspirational women in your life? Who's inspired you to get to where you're at? You could say a few, or who has been the most inspirational to you thus far. And Frida, you can kick us off this time.
The person who inspired me the most was my mom, Muto Belange. As I said, she was studying at the University of Yaoundé in Cameroon, mathematics, and then she left to join at that time was Secretarial College, and worked at a petroleum company for more than 30 years. And by the time she retired, she was quite high level. So, and if you know how French international companies work, basically she was doing the work while the young white boys took the credit. So, so she was one of the people that inspired me. And then mostly it's just almost every woman I've ever come into contact with from almost every race. Like there are always racist women who follow the whatever is the race agenda of their race. Like I've met some crazy white ladies and some crazy Chinese ladies. I'm not going to deny that. But even the woman who sells myondo eru in the market, their focus, their discipline, their priorities. I want to make money to send my children to school, and then when they're ill, I can provide for their medication. I will have my money to put in my meetings or my jangi to then have like my own type of savings and microcredit lending to other women, all the way to women in the big C-suites like Melody Hobson, who is a big CFO, or Michelle Obama, but almost every woman is truly inspiring. From the market lady queen in Ghana, Sierra Leone, from the one who is doing buy and sell them, moving goods, like she sent her cousin to China to come back to sell it in, like, just truly, like, what's the saying, that if you harness the power of women, you hardly have any problems left in the world. So yeah, so my mom, and in general womanhood.
Wow, I can definitely relate to seeing my mom as an inspiration, but that was a really interesting point, saying women in general, because when I really think about it, there are a lot of women, from CEO or knowing the SVP to women that work in coffee shops, and they inspire me with their stories, with their livelihoods. Like, just, you don't have to be the CEO of a company to be inspiring, to be focused, to have a dream, like to have to inspire others. I think comes in all shapes and forms, and I think that was really awesome to say. Rain, did you want to let us know who inspires you? You're on mute.
Great, this will work better. Great. I think, yeah, you ladies tackle most of my point. How do I follow up with the great answers like this? Great, thank you so much. So, joke aside, I would say, first of all, yeah, we can all say our mom. And in my case, I do have two big sisters. So it will be my mom and my sister, because we have a pretty significant difference of age. So I'm the baby. So I have 6 to 7 years of difference with my sisters. So I looked up to my sister a lot. And they also have, degrees. Both of my sister, they have, 2 master's degrees. So in the house, we were talking about it in the house, I had a great example of women standing up for themselves, and not necessarily, they didn't want to listen to what they were told to do, right? So, oh yeah, like this was the first, be a wonderful woman lesson 101. Stand up for yourself, speak up. If you want to accomplish something, you can do it. So the first model I had was, my mom. She was doing it all. Like, as of right now, I'm married, but I don't have kids yet. And I look at my days, my work days. I was like, how can I have kids? And I think about my mom. She did it all. She had like 3 kids. She was always home before us. Dinner was always ready. She was waking up before us, going to bed after us. I was like, only Wonder Women can do this. I think, like, women, we do have this superpower that's just inspiring. And in the industry, I would say, Katherine Johnson, and also my mentor. I have more men mentor than women, which is the reflection of what's going on right now. We need to get out of our bubble and ask. My project manager is a man from Santa Cruz, but willing to help me. I had more support from a white male right now than other women. And it is a fact. We also need to acknowledge people around, around us, and in my case, in the agency at NASA, who are willing to support you. So we have women role models, but also acknowledge that we can also be inspired by the other male around us. But yes, my mom and like all the trailblazer out there, the women going against all the odds, like you want to do something and you keep, you stay focused and you go for it. I would say, yeah, it doesn't matter what you do. If you do it well, my mom always told me, I used to be a babysitter. She's like, be a babysitter, will be remembered. And I'm still in contact with the family, like from, 5 years ago, because I was the kind of babysitter who will come and watch the kids, but also do the dishes, for example, mop the floor, do something, always go the extra mile. So all the women who do that, I admire them and I look up to them.
Well, that's a great response. I agree. I think everyone can relate to their mom in some way, inspiring them greatly. I would 100% say the same thing. I'm the oldest. I say oldest loosely because I'm a twin. But a few minutes I was first. So I'm the oldest in this household. I'm treated like the oldest. And my mom also did it all. She also has many degrees and her doctorate. She still practices. She's a C-suite executive currently, and owns her own business. And I can't tell you how she did it all. I really can't tell you how she did it all. She got most of her degrees after we were born, and there's 3 of us. So I really can't tell you how I can't take care of my cat and keep up with my homework for my master's. So I don't know how she did it with 3 kids. So definitely inspirational. I can only imagine when you're all mothers one day, if you're not already one, your kids will probably also think of you as a superwoman. So don't doubt that. And then Christelle, if you could give us who inspires you.
I think I already been look at the supermodel now. Because yeah, so I have a daughter and I agree with you all. My mom was, we have 5 of us, so she was kind of, I'll say supermom woman, but now I'm like, Mommy, you got help. I do not. So that's make a huge difference, because being in that environment, you have to do a lot of things by yourself. It can be really, really challenging. So, I mean, we're talking about who was a role model for you. So I'm going to stick to that. So definitely there are a lot of people around us, as Freda was saying, like a lot of women around us that can, we look into them and then we say, okay, they're pretty accomplished something bigger, and we are on the path to that too. So I really think that a lot of women out there can inspire each one of us in different points. And if we sum up all of those experiences of all of those things that we're taking from them, we can do great. So definitely I like to, when I started my research here, my postdoc here, I remember that someone said, you know what, if you want to go far, you doesn't have to get married, you doesn't have to get kids, and seriously, there's some period of time when I'm like, maybe it was right, because, it's kind of difficult to manage. But my boss has 2 kids. She was married and she got there anyway. So I think that I when I see her, I'm like, it's possible. You can reach that if you want. It's depending on how much you want it. But I can assure you, it's hard. Definitely, it's not a joke. So managing all of that can be really, really tricky. But we always have people to look up to and to give us more strength to achieve where we're going, to reach the point where we are going. So definitely my mom was one of them, because as you mentioned, Linda, you were all bombs when she was doing her study. I had the same thing. She has the kid from the bachelor, the kid from the master, the kid from her doctorate, But still, now I feel like, okay, you got help, you had made, I don't. So it's totally different. Anyway, so yeah, so there are a lot of women out there that we can look up to. And I think that each one of them can inspire in one point of our life. And we just sum up all of them and say we can do it. But we still have to make sure that we don't go through the burnout so that we can stop where it's time to stop and recognize our limits and say, okay, I need to pause, I need to rest. And then before I go, I move forward. So that's what I want to share with you guys.
Thank you. You bring up a really good point, and actually something I want to discuss next, about having a family and having an ambitious career. As someone who's young in my career, it's something I think about. How is it possible? In my mind, it's not. By my age, my mom had 5-year-olds. I have a cat, so I can't imagine how and when is the best time to have a family, considering my career ambitions and the degree ambitions that I have with my education. So what I wanted to know from all of you all is how you reconcile your demanding job and your work home life. I want to know how that goes for you, what your recommendations are, as far as making sure you don't burn out, that you're able to give it your all at work and still have a fulfilling life at home. And Rain, did you want to go ahead and kick us off for that question?
I was like, well, I was hoping to go live so I can listen to all, the option, maybe get inspired. Okay. So yeah, as of right now, I don't even have a pet. I don't have a cat. So I don't know, but my perspective right now, I work on 2 projects at NASA, right? So I have the satellite project, and I do have another student competition satellite project. So work simultaneously on 2 projects daily. So I can have, long days of solid 14 hours. So my recommendation, I start my day early, right? Like at 5 a.m., I'm already, awake. At least I can take my time and, regroup, find out my purpose in life for that day. I don't make plans in a week from now or a month. It's like on a daily basis, I define my goals and I check the boxes. I have my to-do list, and that's how I keep myself sane, and I keep my list pretty short. 10 main goals to at least feel fulfilled at the end of the day. I like, okay, I check all my boxes. I did everything I schedule first thing in the morning at 5. So I know I accomplished something, because we're human beings. We need this reward, right? And in real life, you have to reward yourself, or congratulate yourself, because no one is, behind you cheering you up. And also, I live with my husband, who is also an aerospace engineer. So I would say that there's no pressure for me, for example, to start a family. We sure want kids, but I spent 8 years in college. I've been working at NASA on my dream project for 2 years. I really feel like the support is really important to let me, be and flourish and accomplish my dream, not only being seen as a woman and have to have kids and have to it's going to come, but I'm fortunate to have this bandwidth to be accomplished, to follow my own, my dream. And I really want to start a family later on. How I'm going to do it, I don't know. Apparently, as a woman, I believe I do have this superpower. I can't see it yet, but it will come, right, like the right time. So I'm really confident that it's going to be okay. So as of right now, to keep my mind, my brain sane, I play a lot of tennis. Try to play tennis, and I play a lot of competition, because when you get to a point, you need to find other challenges, right? Like I'm really oh, if I win a competition, it's just gonna, jack me up and be like, oh yeah, I'll come to work on Monday, have something to share with my colleague. We were talking about loneliness, something to share. My my project manager and my colleagues are really into sports, so it's something we can also relate. It makes you feel good, and you follow your purpose. As of kids, sorry Linda, I can't really dig in onto that. I'm still looking forward to having a pet next year, so yeah, let's start with that. If the pets survive maybe a year from that, I can use my super mom power.
Thank you, Rain. I'll have to maybe when I'm back in San Jose, I'll come looking for your pet and see if
Oh,
they're
yeah,
still
there
there.
we go. Still how the pet is doing, maybe in the meeting, if the pet is hungry. I really don't know how people do it, because with myself, I'm high maintenance. So if I need to take care of another human being, but I got this.
You need to get a high maintenance pet. I recommend a cat.
It's good training, right?
It is. Christelle, would you like to weigh in since you do have a family?
Yeah, man, I have one, but I mean, yeah, it's quite challenging. As I was saying earlier, and it depends also to what you're doing. Basically, I think for me, I find it more challenging because I'm doing research. It's like you never stop. You leave work, you go back home, you still have stuff going on in your hand. You watch the time. Oh my God, it's almost time to go pick up my daughter from the daycare, and I haven't done. If I don't finish it, I don't know. I'll have to start over tomorrow, so I need to find arrangement, someone to pick her up, and so on and so forth. So it really depends on what you're doing. And sometimes I'm dreaming of a job where I just go, I know that I have this task to perform, this, and then I'm done. But you can easily go in the morning, start something. It's like you have to start all over, or you might like, okay, maybe I think this wrong. Or you are after like midday, you're like, oh no, I need to do this. And then the days goes on. So it really depends. And for me, it has been hard. Seriously, it has been hard. From the time when because I mean, I believe I'm strong will. I'm like, I can do it. I'm gonna do it. And sometimes they're like, you think you're superwoman? No, you're not. And then, you have to sometimes just drop back a little bit and just, get more ready to what you're after to. So it has been really challenging. I mean, having a family, because you have to deal with a lot of, you have to deal with another you, if I can say, so it's a lot of things. You have your own emotion, you have her emotion, and she wants a pet now. I'm like, nope, definitely not. And you have to deal with all of that, and you have to advance in your career. For me, I'm gonna share my experience because I think I will talk more about what I want to say. When she was born, it has to, I mean, after her birth, you have to go through a lot of things emotionally, because this is when you realize that a woman is a lot of emotion, there's a lot of hormones going there, because this is how sometimes people ignore the depression after birth and stuff like that, because that stuff happened. And until you face that, you cannot really realize that it's serious, And then you have a research work in a male environment where you have to perform, when you have to, it's quite difficult. But I was lucky in the sense that I had a woman as a chief of the lab, and she was understanding what I was going through. And I'm sure it was a man who would have been different, definitely different. And I came to the point where I think you have to understand that when you're starting a family, you need help. It can be from your husband. And I also got to the point that I need to make more so that I can afford more help from outside, and this is also one of the things. So it can be a drawback in such a way that you have much more things to do. At your work, you're gonna work harder. At home, you're gonna work harder because you're not it's not like you're coming back from home, you're exhausted, you're like, let me relax. No, you're here, mommy, you don't know where to put your head, seriously. So it's quite demanding, and you really need to get prepared for that. It's not impossible, that's what I can say, but you need, maybe I wasn't quite prepared to how much demanding it's going to be. That's why maybe I struggle. But from what I've experienced, what I've heard people saying is like, oh, you're fine, you're normal. So that's things happen. So you really have to get prepared that you're gonna have much more work and you need to be more organized, definitely more organized. So Ren, you're going to have to plan when you wake up in the morning.
I wanted to cut you off, I think 30 seconds, before you stop. And I was like, don't give too many details. Let me, get the courage first and don't give me something positive. We are here trying to, figure out, give me, for example, you said being organized. I was like, okay, check mark. Like I can do that. But then when you were like, as soon as you said mommy, like after 12 hours at work, I was like, well, maybe I will use my superpower at this point.
Exactly. Coming from space, right?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
No, for sure. I mean, it's rewarding because when you don't hear the mommy, you're like, okay, something is missing. So you kind of get used to that, and it's rewarding because you have all the cuddles, all the silly stories, and that makes you laugh. That makes you, going out of your normal environment. So it's rewarding too, but you have to be prepared that it's gonna be challenging. It's gonna be more challenging. And what I was saying about the environment of research, when you go back at work, they don't want to know what you had at home. And, the scientist, the researcher performed through his publication. Now, for example, we are home, working from home. I have my daughter. I cannot perform as much as someone else who has maybe like a man, usually it's the woman who takes care of the kids. We know that in Africa, but it's true here too, somehow. So you have to deal with that. And I have meetings now, for example, I can tell because she's in front of the TV, so find the deal. Those kind of things. Otherwise she will have jumped in and like, okay, what are you doing and stuff like that. So what I was trying to say is like, you have to perform. So when after 2 years, you have no publication out there, no paper written about your work, it's like, she's doing nothing. But you have been spending time dealing to get your kids right, your daughter right, because if you're not there for her, you can create something to her that you will have to deal later on. So you have to find the right balance, and it's all about that, finding the balance. Because my point is always, some women have succeeded doing that, and sometimes I think, when you look at the Nobel Prize women, they don't really have kids, those kind of things. So when you have all those thoughts coming to your mind, you have to find the right balance. So it's all about finding the balance and make sure that you're doing great as your mom did. So doing great as a mom, because after all, those kids are under your responsibility. What they're gonna be tomorrow kind of depend on you too, how you raise them. And you have to fight for them in the environment that they are too. That's why I'm like, you have more work. So, because sometimes you're like, okay, especially if I take the case of the US, you have different counties depending on where she's going to school and stuff like that. You have to be able to afford. So you're like, okay, let me just put her in a nice county. She'll have a great school. She'll have good people to hang out to. But sometimes she can also be looking as coming from a minority and get other issues that you have to deal with. So definitely, all of it is about balance, finding the right balance that works for you, because this is really important. You can see how those people work. You don't know what's happening in other people's house. So I learned not to just take what is good, what I see that is good, but I cannot just, okay, if she do it, I can do it, because you don't really know. And you have to find the right balance that works for you and for your own family. But depending on what you're doing, it can be challenging. As soon as you recognize that there is a challenge, now you can face it. As a doctor, you find it, you have to do the diagnostics first, right? And when you've done that, then you can work on finding a solution. So it's possible. It's rewarding, but it involves work. That's it. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to share about it. There are much more stuff to say about it, but I think it's all come to find the right balance.
Thanks, Christelle. You gave like a really, I think, good broad spectrum answer that touched on a lot of different things that I personally didn't even consider. And thinking about, I think Rain can also say she didn't consider a lot of those things, and thinking about family planning. And it is extremely important. Since I've come to Silicon Valley and joined Apple, it's not necessarily Apple's culture, but what I'm noticing in tech in general is that a lot of higher level women do not have kids. And then it's not necessary, it's kind of frowned upon to have kids if you want to move on higher in your career. I do have colleagues that are like, this is the time to get pregnant because no one will know. Or there are people that are like, have tried to hide it try to wait as long as possible before they tell management because they feel like then they're not seen as like promotable. So that is, I think, a cultural issue in industry in general. So I'm glad you brought that up because it is different for women that have young kids. Like working from home right now, I'll be in my WebEx and there are those that can sit there and concentrate and focus. And there's other people wrestling two toddlers and trying to answer questions in a VP meeting. I feel terrible for them. So it definitely, you can see is a balance. There's a lot to consider, but it does affect how the child grows as well, how much time you're able to put into them. So I can definitely relate to that, having a mom that has many degrees and got those degrees after we were born. There are days we're left at daycare. There are days she was at soccer. Other days we had to find a way home, get a ride with a friend because my parents were very busy. So, but they made sure there was a balance so that I understood the importance of what they were working on and how it would play into my life and why I'm pursuing some of the same degrees that my mom did. So trust that you're doing a great job, Christelle, and that your daughter is going to look up to that one day. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And then Frida, would you like to weigh in?
So I am single, not married, no kids. Sorry, Uncle George. I'm hoping to get married and to have children. And one thing I would like to say is that maybe these senior ladies also didn't have the opportunity to have kids. So what I like is that one of the groups I'm in Women in Science and Women in Tech, we have these talks about fertility, childbearing, and adoption. And we are always put in different groups. And what also helps is that we are also in Germany, where we have the public health care system. So when you go to your gynecologist age 30, you're already having the talk about, are you in a partnership and when do you want to have kids? At age 35, they already talk to you about the options, about freezing your eggs and what are the laws in Germany or throughout Europe. For example, they're like saying that if you want to go to Belgium to have your eggs frozen there, you can have it done there. It's cheaper than Germany, yes, but your eggs are only kept until you're 42 years old. So those are all the kind of talks you have in Germany and in Europe, especially as we have the public healthcare system. Now, for my friends in the States, most of them are based in the East Coast and the West Coast. For the ones that are based in the West Coast, the thing that they did negotiate with their companies, for example, Apple or Facebook or Google, was the fertility option to have their IVF paid for and to also negotiate their maternity leave. So again, that's what I was talking about, that when you reach a certain level, it's not only about negotiating for money, but negotiating about certain options. For example, I have this long, expensive scientific education. Now I have a partner, but my childbearing window has closed. What are the options that my company or my public health or private health insurance can offer to me in regards to fertility treatment, in regards to IVF, or even in regards to adoption when it reaches that level? Or in case for me, one of the things I had looked at for my company was, how do I get this option to help care for my aging parents? For example, if I want to move them from Cameroon to Germany or to the States, what type of insurance package can I get there, and what aging parent policy is part? So those are the type of things, especially as a woman, because it's not only childbearing. My priority for the last 2.5 years was my old parents. Those were kind of my kids. And as Crystal said, you have to find the balance, but you also have to know how to educate yourself and also think about it. So I want all the young girls who are listening on this channel, or even the older ladies who are 40 or 50 years old, who have not had kids and may be thinking about it, to try and educate yourself, to try and see the different options. For example, I know some scientists, women of color, who at the age of 50, they had children, but they got donor eggs. So as a woman of color, those are things that are not usually talked to you about, but because they were in this women in science group, when all the Caucasian ladies were talking about donor eggs and the like, they thought that only men donated sperm or genetic material. They never knew that females also had that option where you could have young women of color who had donated their eggs and they could also have their own race type child. So in Germany, it's a bit tighter to get those options. The female scientist went to the UK for her own donor egg because there's a bigger Black, African and Caribbean community in the UK. And that was before Brexit. EU, you could go back and forth with your insurance for certain things. After Brexit, I'm sure there'll be like more black market of Black people doing certain things in the UK. But these are just type of things that I'd wish people had told me when I was in my 20s, struggling with my master's and my PhD, that, you know, you need to think about your egg quality, the age, taking supplements, managing your weight, your health, little things like that, finding a person so that you don't wake up at 40s knocking at your door and you're like, I don't have a man, I don't have a child, but I have the Nobel Prize, but the Nobel Prize can't hug me. So, yeah. Anyway, that's what my mom always said. The Nobel Prize won't hug you, Taku. Nobel Prize is not going to hug you and say, I love you, mommy. You need to get a child. So, yeah.
That sounds like an African. Oh, that's a good point, Frida, because work-life balance, reconciling things isn't just about having kids. It's also about being able to spend time with your family, take care of your family members, take care of your parents, which is extremely important, and having the time and space to be able to do that. And then when you are young and you're ambitious, there's a lot of pressure to have kids. But if you don't want to do that, what are your options? That's something that I've also never thought about. Like if I say, well, I want to get my second master's in my doctorate degree, and I know I won't be done now until what, maybe 32, 35, then what, you know, if I don't have kids now. So those are important things to discuss. And that's actually a conversation that isn't had often enough. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And hopefully that does get people to think about, you know, there are more options than having kids early and then struggling your way through, you know, because that's usually what happens. So thank you for bringing that up. And when it comes to work-life balance, it is more than just having kids. You want to make sure you feel fulfilled in your own life. As Rain said, you feel fulfilled every single day. At the end of the day, you're happy, and that you feel like you're doing what you want to do with your life. And there's a lot of pressure to be successful, but more than anything, you want to make sure that you're happy. So thank you for bringing that up. And like Christelle said, there's so many things to think about when it comes to having kids. And as Frida said, there's so much more to think about in work-life balance. So I just hope that sticks with people and they remember that, because it's honestly will make or break you, I think, is how you're able to manage your work-life balance and that you're not burning out on a day-to-day basis. So we've had such a great discussion here today, and we're actually pretty close to the end. I'm at my very last question for you all. And it's basically just what advice you guys have to give to young minority females or just young people in general, trying to break into their field, starting their careers for the first time. What do they need to know to be successful? And I really ask this because as someone who's really young in my career, recently finished undergrad and back-to-back in my master's. My sister, also same age, my younger sister, is in her second master's right now. So we are young in our careers, and she's on the other side, like Frida and Christelle, she works at Johns Hopkins. She's on the healthcare side, where I'm with Rain, I'm on the engineering side. So we're opposites. And we're young in our careers, and we just want to know, like, what do we need to know moving forward? You know, how can we know that we're going to be successful, know that we're taking the right path forward with our education and with our professional careers? And then whoever wants to kick this one off, actually, I'll let you guys go.
See, when you give us the option, Yeah, okay. No one wants to
If
go.
no one's jumping for it, then I'm gonna
Yeah, okay.
start
I will
with
go ahead. Let me chime in. You know, you ladies owe me something because I'm going first. I don't know yet what it says. So one advice I would start by saying that what I would say to my younger self, right? When I was in undergrad or, you know, doing my undergrad because I did, you know, 2 bachelors. So I really, it's still fresh in my mind. I would say to my younger self, you have your own agenda. Don't compare yourself to your friends, to your family, and not even to the image your parents like have of you, like, or where they want you to go, how they want you to behave. Yes, they do have guidance, and I really appreciate my parents for doing that. But I reached a point in my life, like when I was doing my second bachelor in, you know, system engineering for minor in aerospace engineering, where I wasn't in agreement with my parent, but I had something deep inside me, like I just knew that it was my path. Like I found my purpose. And I went from being an average student, my bachelor, first bachelor, because my parents, like, yeah, they waited a lot saying that, oh yeah, that's what you should do. So I was really average, you know, and I would say a B student. And then I started the aerospace engineering, and I went and I started being an A plus student. I was like, well, do what you love and you have your own agenda. It took me, I graduated from high school in 2010. Started working at NASA, having my what we call real job, right? When you talk to your friend, like being hired, my real job at MEI and contracted at NASA in 2018. So it took me 8 years, 8 years to finish college. So you do have your own agenda. All my friends were already in the industry, making the big bucks. I couldn't join, you know, for birthday or getaways because I had to study, and they were all like, "We don't have to deal with it." So first, you have your own agenda. Second of all, don't have. Okay, I made that mistake, but don't have a goal. Have a purpose. Don't like sit down and be, I want to work for this company or I want this position, because you come to a realization that when you have your purpose, like your vision, um you are just heading there. Like everything you do on a daily basis serve your purpose. So don't you know, be narrow minded and be, I only want to do this because that's what I know. Be open to other options. And lastly, because I know Frida and Christelle will extend on that, and it's also have the courage, have the courage to want what you like you are also worth it, like, because we have been told for a lot of years, or as long as I remember, that we can only do so much. But then we realized that, like with role model, with our mentor, that sky is the limit. And I like to say space is not even the limit, right? Like I had a meeting this morning for a mission on Venus, right? Like a lady, I am from Douala, Cameroon. I'm 9 years old. I told them I will work at NASA. You really have to stay focus and don't let anyone, not even your parents, discourage you, because you can do it. And surround yourself with positive people. For example, I preserve my energy. You do have this energy and you need to be able to use your energy to do good to people and give back. Now I'm in a position where I, you know, I am fortunate enough to do what I love, and I want to look back and help, you know, like young people like myself who are still trying to you know, figure out what they want to do, or maybe they have an idea. I'm here to support, because I feel like by giving back, it's also a form of fulfillment. Nothing makes you happier than giving back. It's not about, at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you make. Like here, especially in the Silicon Valley, when you sit at the table, people gauge themselves. Oh yeah, how would you make like a solid six figure, or what is your RSU? And people focus so much on money, and at the end of the day, you can live in a 1.5 million like mansion but still not be happy, right? So find what you like, stay focused, and also have fun. Come on, like people sometimes they contact me and I start laughing and they are really like surprised that I know how to laugh. Like I can laugh to think. Yes, I also sometimes go to clubs, well, before 2020, but I right? I do have fun. I do play tennis and I like jokes. That's the reason why I can, for example, be friend with some of the VPs from Amazon, Apple, because I realized that they're also human beings, right? They don't necessarily be like to be treated differently. So like be relaxed, do what you like, have the courage to ask for help and just move forward, enjoy life. Like, yeah, that's what wanted to share.
Thanks, Rain. Such a powerful closing comment. See, it worked out that you went first.
They still owe me something though.
I think what you said about relaxing and being yourself is so important nowadays, especially in the environment that we're. It is extremely competitive. And part of what sets you apart is who you are as a person. And people need to be willing to show that. I know for the senior VPs that I've worked with at Apple, people were like shocked. They're like, I say hi to them, or I've joked with them at like the Christmas party because we both had on cat Christmas sweaters, and they're like, "Do you know who that is?" And I'm like, "I do know who that is," but they're also a person, and they appreciate that. They see me, they say hello to me, they walk up to me, and people are surprised by that. But your humanity also comes first. So being yourself, especially as Black women, like I think we have some of the most unique personalities I've ever seen. And being yourself can really get you a long way. Not just how not just how intelligent and brilliant you are, but your personality itself will get you a long way. So thank you for sharing that. And then Christelle, would you like to give us your advice?
Well, what I would say definitely, I think it's important to find your way, find your path, know what you want to do. But unfortunately, I know a lot of young people that does not know how to do that because I did it myself. So, and I think that this is where education is important, because when I say education, it's not about what you learn from school, but what are the personality skills? I mean, the human skill that gets you to understand what you're really good for, because you can do a lot of things. So you need to find a good mentor or a good educator that can just help you in the midst of everything that you're into to get to what exactly you think you're meant for, right? Like, Ren says since she was 9, she said she was going to work for NASA. There are a lot of stuff that we're saying like that, but we are and then we end up far from the reality, because at what point in our life we just forgot about it. And I'm sure you forgot about it until you got there. But now I know, for dealing with that late, that there is a process that can help you know exactly what you want to do. So educate yourself. It's really important, even on the bad thing about just not the profession and what job you're going to perform. It's important to know that, okay, this, you know what, I'm not good at this. I don't think I can go into anything that involves like mathematics, anything that involves it, because you're not going to be happy over there, And also, sure, you have a purpose now. As Rainbow put it, it's important. I really like the point that not a goal, but purpose, right? Okay, you have a big picture, right? And then you can reach different goals within it. Now you have that. And I feel like here you have to introduce passion. You have to be passionate about what you're doing, because when we come, for example, for a matter of earning more, earning a lot, there are some jobs that are really, really engaging, interesting, but you don't make that much. Mine, for example, I can say, I have hours in the lab, but I think I got so much more, but it's not a huge problem. You don't see it as a huge problem because you can deal, I mean, you can, it's what you're making is enough for you, and you have so much passion for what you're doing. You know where you're going at that point already. So it's important to have passion about when you decided to, what you decided to do for your life. And related to that, there are a lot of skill that you need to develop, like you need to really work on. Like, for example, as a scientist, you need a lot of patience, those kind of things. And it's also important to be open-minded, as Ren has put it earlier. It's really important because life happens and you might still on the purpose, but have to change your path, those kind of, have to change your way of, and then it's really important to stay open-minded, to be curious, and to go towards people that can give you the right advice. It's also important, I think, in the life that we have to be, to select the friends, to select the people that you're hanging out with. Seriously, it's important because you have people that drags you up and you have people that drags you down. So it's really important. But I think on the top of that is what we said earlier, know what you want to do. And if you don't know, already think about, okay, I don't know what I want to do. How do I get there? And get yourself some help to get to it. And then you'll find it, oh, I really enjoyed it. I'm sure I can do it. And then have passion, be patient and open-minded. So that's what I want to share with you. And that's what I can, yeah.
Thank you, Christelle. I think a lot of what you said really resonated with me and is extremely important to consider. Going with my career moving forward, I don't think you guys realize how wise you sound and how much this has impacted me. And I'm sure those that are watching and listening along. So Frida, now you have the big task of closing us out with your words of wisdom, as Christelle and Rain have, and tell us what your advice would be.
Well, I agree with everything Crystal and Rain said. And the only thing I can add to that is be kind to yourself. The outside is already so tough, and the inside is also extremely tough. And I know you guys are talented and passionate and you're driven, you are disciplined, you will make it. But I want you to also remember, be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself.
Thank you, Frida. That honestly, there couldn't have been a better way to sum all of that up. Thank you so much, Christelle, Rain, Frida, for your time. Thank you to all of our wonderful participants that joined us on Facebook Live and those that are on the Zoom call listening. This session was truly inspiring and a testament to the talent minority women leaders bring to the workplace and research space. This session has been recorded and is being streamed and will be available on the KIS website as well as YouTube. For those who want it, we can also send you a separate link. Thank you again for participating. It was so fun getting to talk to you all. I hope our paths cross again and that I can speak to you all in the future to learn more about your endeavors and how your careers continue to grow. And if you could help to advise me as mine also continues to grow. So thank you so much. Mr. Akima, I'm not sure if you wanted to jump in and say any closing words. And if not, that's all for today, guys.
Thank you, Linda. I have nothing to say after a brilliant mind like the panelists and you. Just to acknowledge Ms. Carmichael. Ms. Carmichael, thank you for helping us to get Rain on the panel. And I want to thank all of you, and that's it.
Bye.
Thank you all. Everyone have a safe
Thanks for having us.
weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye.